A friend of mine is training for her very first marathon and asked me to take a look at the plan that ChatGPT wrote for her. It's not a terrible plan, but it's missing quite a lot of things. So maybe it is a terrible plan. But anyway, it looks more like a long run progression rather than a true marathon plan. First of all, it has her only running 3 days a week. Could you run a marathon training and running only 3 days a week? Yes, it's possible, but I'm going to tell you it's not going to be pretty because your cardiovascular system might be able to handle 26 miles, but your musculoskeletal system probably will not if you only run 3 days a week. So I would, at a minimum, be running 4 days a week. Now, this person also does CrossFit, and it has her doing CrossFit twice a week. And just a very general plan like, oh, maybe decrease your leg intensity as you get closer to the actual race. But it's just like not specific enough and it's too general and there's no guidelines whatsoever for that. So truthfully, twice a week CrossFit, because the programming is not planned out, you really don't know what you're going to do the day that you show up. I mean, you might have heavy front squats, or you might have deadlifts, or you might have box jumps, and it might ruin your quality run the next day, or it might ruin your long run. So you have to be really, really selective, and you have to be like looking at your program almost every week if you're going to be doing CrossFit at the same time. In the early, like first 2.5 months, you can get away with doing some other stuff. But the last month and a half to 2 months where your volume of running really goes up, it's going to be almost impossible to really do CrossFit and recover. That's just my honest opinion. Having done both, I would not do them at the same time. You have to decide what your goal is. Is it just to finish? Or are you trying to go for a time? Because you have to make the goal. What is most important to you? Because if you do want to make a time or you want to finish feeling strong and healthy, you're going to have to make choices and say no to certain things. The other thing it didn't have in there was any sort of run pacing. So like you should have tempo runs and marathon pace runs and half marathon pace runs within that program. And it gets her up to like 120 miler, but that doesn't mean that it would necessarily be sufficient. Truthfully, instead of mileage, it's probably better to go with something like time on your feet. So I typically prescribe people to run like a certain amount of time. So you might run up to 2.5 to 3 hours, and whatever your mileage is the mileage you have. Or you might do like a run walk program, and that might make your first marathon a lot more digestible. So yeah, there you have it. Those were like the 3 big issues: run frequency, lack of specificity in terms of run pacing, and the last thing is lack of specificity with like knowing how to integrate CrossFit into all that. And it doesn't have to be CrossFit, it could just be lifting. You should be lifting, but towards the second half of the marathon, you may only be lifting once or twice a week for like 15 or 20 minutes. And that sounds really low and kind of ridiculous, but I'm going to tell you that with the amount of miles you're going to be running, that's all you're going to be able to recover from. You want to do the minimal effective dose of strength training because it's going to mess up with your runs. And if running is the goal at the time, like the marathon is the most important thing for you at the time, you're going to have to put CrossFit on the back burner. And you're not going to be hitting your PRs and all that kind of stuff. Or if you do, there's going to be a price to pay, usually at the marathon. So, my 2 cents.